Some of it. I have a few. I say, yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Caesar Gourmet Food for Dogs presents Love Them
Podcast. All the time. Come and talk to your specialist.
Variety of angles, from open source code and data to open ecosystems and innovation
to the wild.
Where you can add max and peace. Relax. Unwind.
Is the most dramatic podcast ever. An iHeartRadio podcast.
Chris Harrison coming to you from the home office in Austin, Texas, for this special, very special Father's Day edition of the most dramatic podcast ever. I've never done this, but since we're all so much older and we've all become dads, I thought what a cool thing to do for this Father's Day week, to go back and talk to some of not only my favorite people who I got to know through the show over the years, but also some of my favorite dads on the show. And that is Ryan Sutter, JP Rosenbaum, and Bob Guiney. That's right, Bob Guiney. I consider him a friend and a dad. And he's actually a friend of my first guest as well, because they were on the same season and fought for the love of the same woman. Bob Guiney somehow didn't win that battle against Ryan Sutter. And the rest is television history. The first dad I wanted to bring on, Ryan, good to see you, buddy.
You too, Chris. Thanks for having me.
It's been way too long. First of all, we have to say, I'm just glad you're still a dad. All the drama on social media.
Well, right? Like the second you think no one's paying attention to you in life, something like that happens.
You know what's funny? So I follow you and Trista clearly online, and you guys are dear friends of ours. And I know you to be a poet. I know you to be a great writer. You express yourself that way. And so when I read your thing, I said, yeah, it's kind of, over the top and melodramatic. That's Ryan. He was in a mood. If you know Ryan, he can get in these moods, and it's not always about his family. Sometimes just about his health and his life. And so you're a great writer. And so I know you express yourself that way. And when I started reading the comments, I'm like, oh God, people are really freaking out. They don't know what he's talking about. And not that I really knew what you were talking about, but at the same time, I knew that that's not exactly how you would come on and announce something dramatic happening in your life.
Yeah. Well, yeah. First of all, if there was something really, really bad happening in my life, I wouldn't be telling anyone. Like that's right, the other side of me that you probably know, is that I have most of my personal life stays pretty personal. So my take on social media is twofold. I mostly only use Instagram because I like pictures, and I love looking back on my life and reflecting on, with the fatherhood theme, reflecting on my kids when they were younger, and the writing portion of it just reminds me of the emotional states I was in at those particular times. And you're right. Usually it's like almost all good art seems to come from some sort of, it's not tragic event, but something that really hits you emotionally.
Well, pain and struggle always gives us good art. Yeah,
exactly. And I feel like, and you maybe feel the same way, but I feel like I do have some responsibility as someone that people know a little bit about, to share in some of that and let people know, hey, I deal with loneliness too. I deal with health issues too. I deal with this stuff too. And it's okay. The intent is not to be like, hey, I'm going to throw this out here and make people wonder if my wife's alive. That's not what I'm going after here.
Of all the people that troll. So
Max would love to play hockey after high school, but we know the sports world is difficult, and that's not always an option. So, and injuries or whatever happens. So I find myself soaking up every opportunity to watch them do the things they love to do now. And like this trip to Mexico, just hanging out with them and going snorkeling, and I would be dead tired from surfing or something, and Blakeslee would want to go out and snorkel, and you're like, oh yeah, let's go do it. Because in the back of your mind, you're like, you just know your opportunities to do this are limited as they continue to grow and become more independent. And then the next thing you know, they're the ones with the kids, and we're the grandfathers. This is the rabbit hole I can't go down too far, or it gives me anxiety. I'm like, oh my God, grandfather? I can't be a grandfather.
Yeah. Well, just, I always say, I told parents, I was always worried about the college step, and it really was the driving that separates you, because man, how much do you miss picking them up from hockey, and yeah, your car stunk to death because lacrosse and hockey are the smelliest sports in the world. But the kids would be in the back seat just talking to each other with their friends, and that was the download. You got all the information, and you really heard exactly how excited they were, or how hurt they were, or whatever it was, and that is really that pivotal moment when they start driving, and you relish those moments. Now I'll meet you at your game, and in that hug after the game is over never gets old.
Yeah, no, I know I mean, parenting is one of those things that you, people tell you how great it is, and until you actually experience, you never really know the depth of it. And I actually just saw something recently where I think it was David Coggins or something, one of those crazy dudes, was like, and this is the period of life I feel like I'm in, is it's all about setting my kids up, that my trophies, if you will, in life are my kids, how they interact with other people. Yeah. They're my representation of who I am and who I want them to be. And I just want to give them as much as I can at this point in their life to set them up to be successful, caring, sympathetic, empathetic, smart young people. And so that's why, Tristan and I moved to Denver. We've done this kind of major life change in order to just put the full focus on our kids for these last 2-3 years, because we know that they're going to go out in the world, and it's really important. Your first impression in the world is really important. And I'm not saying selfishly that I want them to represent me. I want them to go out and be like, oh, hey, Ryan's a great dad because his kids are great. But kind of I do. I want them to go out there and be like, hey, these are great kids. You must have been there for them. That's kind of the validation for the amount of love and opportunity that you can give your kids. And so that's been the real focus, that it's not keeping them necessarily just like actually safe, like making sure they don't drown and crack their head open anymore. It's basically setting them up to be competent young adults and confident people. And that's a trickier thing to do with teenagers.
Well, and I think you said something very important. I think as a dad, as a parent, allow your kids to fail. Don't always save them from every moment. And it's hard to do. You want to go in, and I think this generation of parents has done that to a fault, of going in and never letting kids fail. And you really need to let them figure things out. If they're not getting the playing time on a team and they're bitching and moaning about it, it's like, okay, well, then go talk to your coach. You go talk to him, or you do this, find out what you need to do. And you're failing this class. You go in, and I'm not going to go in and talk to your teacher. This is on you. And, you can help give them those guidelines and how the parameters of how to do that, but it's got to be on them to have those tough conversations and to allow them to lose, to fail, to all those things are important that, because they're going to in the real world. You're not always going to get the job. You're not always getting the trophy. That's not how it works.
Yeah, no, you're right. And no matter how hard you try to protect them from all that stuff, you can't. I had a really great fire chief one time. We were talking about his son, and his son played football and he was struggling, like you said. And he came right out and said, listen, his son's name was Taye. And he said, Taye, you're not really that good. Like, you need to start thinking about after football life. Like this. And then he actually said that was the worst mistake he ever made in his life, because he could have just been supportive. Like, hey, maybe hit the weight room a little more, be faster. Knowing in the back of his mind that life was going to teach his son that lesson. So it hurt their relationship, because his dad discouraged him from pursuing what at the time was a dream, rather than just supporting, which is what I do with no one thought I was going to go play going to get my one play in the NFL that I got ever, because my parents never told me to stop pursuing that dream. And I'll never tell Max to do that, even though I know he's got a less than 1% chance of ever playing.
It's an uphill climb. Yeah. No matter how good you are.
Yeah. But life will teach him that lesson. And so allowing life to teach them some lessons it's really hard for Trista, especially. She wants to be like, and God bless her, she is the most nurturing, caring person I have ever met. but that's let them learn the lesson and salvage your relationship with them, and then be there to kind of help them.
Or you didn't get to start this season, or you didn't get the part in the play that you wanted.
Yeah.
Those are really nice small failures that will help you later in life when you actually have something meaningful that, you think it's the biggest thing in the world, but it's not. There's bigger things ahead in their life that they're going to have to, get over those obstacles. And so you got to have those smaller micro failures later so you can handle the big stuff. How would you like to celebrate Father's Day?
I think I'm actually working, which is usually the case, but
saving lives. It's what he does.
Hang on one second. We have this puppy who is chewing up my daughter's ballet shoe. Looks to be no damage.
That was the biggest dad comment ever. I have a puppy who's chewing up my daughter's ballet shoe. There you go. That just sums up Father's Day right there.
That's probably how I will spend Father's Day. I don't know, Trista's been asking me that too. And then also have my 50th birthday coming up. And
welcome to the club.
Yeah, I know. Right. I don't know. I would love to just spend some time with the family. We had that Mexico trip was just so awesome. Yeah. For whatever reason, our kids get along really well when we're on vacation. They suddenly become friends rather than just siblings. And
yeah,
I would love to somehow be able to duplicate that on that day. But I don't put a lot of, I guess, weight on these sorts of days anymore. It's just, for me, every day is Father's Day. I get to enjoy being a dad. Every day I wake up in the morning, and that's plenty good for me.
That sums it up. That's like, I did a separate little podcast about what dads like. Dads just want, honestly, if you take a moment, you give us your time, give us a call, write us a letter. Did your kids get the writing gene? Did you pass that down to them to take time to write letters?
You know what? Max has a girlfriend, and she took a family vacation for 12 days over in Europe or something. I didn't even know this, but Trista told me. He didn't tell Trista either.
Yeah.
He wrote her a note for every day she was gone, and then presented it to her when she got back in like a fancy box that he like wrapped sort of special. And I didn't read it. Hey, stop it. Jeez. Now he's got a breast mint he's chewing on. And then the second part of that is he hated English class starting this school year.
Yeah.
And then we got a note from his teacher about a month and a half ago before school saying how proud he was of Max and the progress he's made writing. And he's embraced it. And it's not natural. I kept telling him, like, listen, you need to know how to do this. It's important.
Yeah.
But it's crazy, Chris, like just seeing him all of a sudden be fully engaged in life, reading books. Like he just read that Make Your Bed book from cover to cover yesterday. And he's into it. He's trying to get better at sports. He wakes up every morning and goes over to the ice rink. It's like 15 minutes from our house, skates for an hour by himself. Like he's just driven, and it's really cool to see. Blakesley's the same way, minus the getting up at 6 a.m, but she's the same way with dance. And you just get so proud of your kids because they are figuring it out, and they're figuring it out kind of on their own without a whole lot of pushing. We're just, like I said, we're just sort of supporting them, and they're somehow managing to figure it out. So it's cool.
Well, they're managing because you're an excellent dad. You're an amazing example of the grind, the fortitude, what it takes to be successful, to overcome, health obstacles, etc. And that's why I wanted to have you on. I don't get to talk to you enough, and we have 2 more dads waiting in the wings, but I really wanted to have you on because I think you are a shining example of just a good man and a good human, but you're a great dad. And so happy Father's Day, my friend.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And it's great. Likewise, the feeling is mutual.
My love to you, to Trista, to the kids. Have a great Father's Day, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Chris.
No waiting to see the.com/Chris.
Upcoming female entrepreneurs to let your passion follow you.
Savings are happening now.
With another season of Smart Talks with IB.
Switch to the revolutionary period underwear for prints and different styles, from bikinis to boy shorts.
Hey!
There he is, my next father.
15 for 15% off life-changing period underwear. That's knix.com.
Hey!
There he is, my next father, my next guest on this Father's Day edition of the most dramatic podcast ever. God, he's still handsome as can be. JP Rosenbaum, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How you doing? It's been a long time.
It's been so long. I was telling one of our producers, I said, yeah, she said, how close are you and JP? And I said, he was one of my favorite humans that ever came through the show. I love him dearly. I used to get to see him 5 or 6 times a year when he was working in New York. We would always do dinner. We always made time. Yeah. And I never get to Miami. I realized because of you, how little I ever go to Miami. Yeah. Because if I did, you're my first call.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we moved down about 10 years ago. And since then, it's just, life goes on, things get in the way. And I don't even get to LA hardly ever. So, but I still love you just the same.
Well, if anybody's under a rock, JP was obviously on The Bachelorette with Ashley, where they found love, got married. And one of the reasons, obviously, father of 2, Essie and Ford, he did it kind of like me. He had to, it's kind of the best setup, right? The older son, younger daughter. That's, as they call it, the king's choice.
Right.
And, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because A, you're a good friend and you're a great dad. But B, is you're in the same boat as I am. Your kids are a product of divorce. And I, did that. And one of the things I really, and I'm going to let you talk about this, but one of the things I see publicly anyway, is that you guys really respect each other. You still can have enough respect for your ex, Ashley, and say, hey, you're a good mom. During Mother's Day, let's promote you on Mother's Day and let's make sure the kids are with you on Mother's Day. And it seems to be on Father's Day, she's really good about, hey, JP's a great dad. Let's make sure the kids are with you.
Yeah. I think we are very fortunate that we are amicable and civil and know that the kids come first. And it's been a while now. It's been 4 or 5 years. I don't even remember. We decided right before COVID hit. So it wasn't that way initially.
Of course. Feelings are hurt. It's raw.
Spite, anger, and admittedly so, more so on my end. But we have come to a place now where everything is relatively easy, that we know the children come first, that there's no more anger, no more animosity, no more spitefulness. None of that really exists anymore. And, the kids, I think, see that we are on the same team when it comes to them, and they always come first. And so it's not good. It's easy. Yeah.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. You have to make that commitment of the kids come first. And that's easier said than done because like you said, divorce happens for millions of reasons and it's never a great one, right? We are so happy and everything's so awesome. We're going to get divorced. So there's always some contentious something and there's a raw nerve. And so you really do have to swallow that pride. Sometimes one person more than the other and just almost get over yourself a little bit and just make that leap because the kids do have to come first and man, they do notice and it makes such a big difference and it makes you a better dad. It makes her a better mom in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. And they see us together and there are smiles. There's no fighting. There's no anger. I know that they can feel that,
they can relax.
Yeah. And it just makes it easier. And we've just kind of now fallen into a rhythm where the kids are used to it. There's a lot of shared time. We're technically 50-50, but we see the kids more than that on both sides. We're flexible with days and times and watching the kids. And so it is as easy of a divorced kind of solution as you could hope for when you're getting divorced, I guess.
One of the great joys I have had, and talk about a weird thing to have with your job. When I hosted the show for, 20 years, getting to know people like you, Ryan Sutter was just on, Bob Guinea's coming on right after you, these great friends of mine. And then I get to watch them become dads. And I've watched you guys become great dads and real role models for your kids and role models for other fathers. And I've been watching you and your kids and you're going fishing. And, I know you love that. You're sharing your passion of that. And to watch the smile on your face when Ford's holding up, a peacock bass or something is just awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, you don't want to miss any of those little moments or the firsts, right? I always talk about the first and after a divorce, I'm only with them 50% of the time. So it feels like they mean even more, you know?
Yeah, you're
So I
right.
try to take any of that stuff for granted, and the stuff that I know made me happy as a kid, seeing them smile and it bring them joy. It's just more impactful, I think, after divorce that you're just more sensitive to it. And
That's funny. Yeah, I guess I've never articulated that, but I felt the same way as, you know, even, no matter what your marriage is like, you're around your kids 100% of the time. And in the best divorce, mine included, it's 50-50. And so you're just not there every morning to eat breakfast. You're not there when they come home from school and bitch and moan or tell a great story. You're missing half of the content, right?
Yeah.
And so that's in the best case scenario. So you're right. You really do end up relishing those moments and try to drink them in even more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the kids are probably going to be with you this week or this weekend, I assume?
So the schedule wasn't supposed to be that way, and they do obviously spend the day with me on Father's Day and the day with her on Mother's Day. But we're very flexible, so we switch days up, and I'm going to take the kids to New York and see my family, their grandfather, and
awesome.
So yes, we'll all be together this weekend.
Oh, that's so great. Is that I guess that leads to the answer to the question I'm about to ask is like, what would be your perfect Father's Day? Like, what do you enjoy?
I've had this conversation a lot. When you're married, you kind of want the day off as a father.
Right. And that's never what happens.
Right. When you're divorced, you get the kids on Father's Day. And look, it's great. So I have plenty of days off now, but now that, that I'm divorced. So spending it with the kids, doing something that I know they would love and I would love together, that's what it's all about. And what better way to fly up to New York and spend it with the family that we don't get to see all that often.
That is going to be cool.
Yeah.
How old is Essie and Ford now?
Ford is 9.5. He just finished third grade, and Essie, she's 7.5, and she just finished first grade.
Wow.
So now transitioning to summer and camp, and then it starts all over in September.
It is amazing how much it changes you. And I just said this to Ryan, every stage gets better and better. You want to keep them in that baby phase, then you want to keep them as toddlers, but every stage gets better and better.
Yeah. And it also flies by too. I mean, it's such a cliche. Everyone says it, but like,
it's so damn true, man.
You blink and they're in another grade. And so I'm really trying to make a conscious effort to slow things down as much as I can and just enjoy it all, because I think I read something really silly, and I don't know if it's true or not. It's one of those Instagram rabbit holes you go down where you spend 80% of your kids' time like with them up until, they're 15 years old, and then they don't want to be around you as much. They go off to college.
Yeah. Well, they just got stuff, right?
Yeah,
they're driving. They're good. They got practice. They got school. I mean, it was funny when, because like you said, I was 50-50. I would have the kids by myself in California. And I remember when my son started driving and he could drive my daughter to school as well. And I got up in the morning, I would make them lunch. I always did that, even though they could do it themselves, but it was my thing. I would get up and take them to school. And I'll never forget that first time I made them lunch. And then the kids came down, they grabbed their lunch and they ran out. And I was like, oh, that's right. Like, yeah, I'll see you later. I'll see you after school. And and my son's like, oh, I got practice. And my daughter's like, oh, I do too. And then I have this and then I have this. And I'm like, okay, so I guess I'll see you guys like at 7:00 tonight.
Right.
Okay. And then like the door closed and the house was so quiet and I was there by myself and I'm just like, oh shit. Wow, that was it. The switch just happened. And that was what you're talking about. It goes from that 80%, you're picking them up, you're hearing the stories, you're meeting, and then it's like they're off. And, and now Josh has graduated college and he's got his own apartment and he's working. And now I'm just like, hey buddy, can we just go grab lunch? Can we go to the gym together? You got to drink those moments in.
Yeah. So I'm definitely focused on doing that. And no matter how much you try and slow it down, it still flies by.
I think the more you try to slow it down, the more it flies by. But
True.
But Lauren always said this, and it's true. And I never articulated this either. Of like, you put in the time now. You put in the work now as a dad, so you just can enjoy them as adults later.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to look at it. I can't picture it yet, but hopefully I'm setting the groundwork where will want to spend time with me when they're older. And
they absolutely will.
Right?
I'm telling you, all the work you're doing now, what you and Ashley have done, how eloquent and beautifully you've handled everything, it pays 20-fold. And not just the time you're going to get and how much they love you, but the human beings that you're raising. Like, they're going to be great people.
Yeah, that's your biggest fear, right? You want it.
I know.
You want them, like no parent knows if they're doing a good job or not, right?
No,
you just
it is
want
a
to make sure
crapshoot,
they're not
right?
total douchebags when they grow up, and they're good people, and they follow the right path. And you never know, you never know how they're going to turn out, but you do your best and kind of hope for the best.
Well, you guys have done an incredible job, and I want to have you back on because you have not been a guest on the show, and you and I need to catch up. We need to really dive deep and get into life, because there's so much more I want to ask you about. But most importantly, my friend, happy Father's Day.
Very, very same to you, Chris. I miss you, bud.
Love you, brother. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
Waiting to see the doc.com/
upcoming like female entrepreneurs are just already sort of established way.
From the Home Depot.
With mission critical outcome.
Period underwear from Knix. Styles from bikinis to boy shorts. Thong.
Last and certainly not least.
Promo code TRY15 for 15% off life-changing period underwear. That's knix.com.
Last and certainly not least, on this special Father's Day edition of the most dramatic podcast ever, one of my favorite humans. And again, the reason I have these guys on today, they're also great dads. Bob Guiney, happy father of two to two beautiful children, Grayson and Blake. How you doing, buddy?
I'm awesome, buddy. How are you? Happy Father's Day to you.
Happy Father's Day.
Yes.
So I had Ryan Sutter on, JP
Awesome
Rosenbaum,
dad.
Bob
Great
Guiney, and three very good friends of mine, great fathers, but you're all dads in very different ways.
Yeah.
Ryan was kind of younger and probably more of the traditional route. We all saw him, beat you out to find love with Trista.
Whooped my ass.
And I wanted to dive in with JP about, because, he's like me, his kids are a product of divorce and how he's handled that so eloquently. And they've done a great job. With you, a father a little later in life.
Yeah.
And I've wondered, because, I'm a dad later in life, but my kids are now 20 years old. Your son just graduated from preschool, I think.
Yeah, he did. He did.
How has that given you the perspective on life of being a dad, of being able to appreciate things probably a little more?
Well, I will say this. First of all, thank you for including me on this, and what great company to be in with JP and Ryan and with you. I mean, three people I really care about and I've gotten to know over the years. And I feel, you and I are the closest in age. And for us to be at such different stages in the game, from the parenting perspective, it is pretty interesting. But I will say this. I think for me, and I can only say this about myself, right? For me to be at this age having kids is the right time for me. I think I think at a younger point in the game, maybe I don't want to say I would have necessarily been too selfish, because I don't want to think I would have ever been too selfish for kids, but I did kind of get to a point thinking, well, maybe I'm not going to be a dad. And I always thought I would have been. And, to be in a spot now where I am a father and realize, man, I don't even think I knew what love was until I had my kids, and can actually see them growing I feel really blessed. I hate when people say that, because for whatever reason it irritates me, but I do feel blessed, and I do feel lucky, and I do feel like I've had kind of a charmed existence from the standpoint of, I'm not the guy sitting here thinking, oh man, if it weren't for these damn kids, I'd be out doing something fun.
Right.
Well, you and I have had such a fun life, and it's like, I don't regret anything, especially when I look back on it now and I have my family. So yeah.
No, I don't. By the way, it's not silly. It's not cheesy. And it doesn't know if you don't feel unbelievably blessed to, to have your father around to celebrate Father's Day with, to call him, to have your dad be able to see his grandkids. And then now for me and you to feel that kind of love and responsibility, and just be grateful for, being able to be a dad. It truly is the greatest thing. And I agree. There's benefits to being younger, I guess, because, you can stay up and, you're a little more, I think, God gives you maybe a little more patience, but, when you're older, you probably have the perspective, and this is a very important thing for a dad, I think, is you kind of know what's important. You know what to really pour your energy into. I think as a young dad, I probably poured my energy into things that didn't matter. I mean, we talk about sports. Everyone's, I want my kid to be the best in this and this. And you realize, oh my God, it doesn't matter. No. Your kid doesn't need to play 180 baseball games and travel ball. You don't need to spend $20 billion so they can possibly get a $10,000 scholarship to college. It's just that's funny. You know how to be there. You know how to talk to them probably more. I think there's a lot of benefits to being older.
It's funny you bring up the sports thing, and it is kind of interesting. I played college sports, and my wife played, like really high level soccer. And everyone's like, are you teaching him how to throw the ball yet? I'm like, well, when he wants to, and they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, when he says, Daddy, let's play catch. I'm like, okay, but I'm not like making him go out there and run drills. I mean, my dad didn't do that to me. And my dad, the way my dad brought me up was so casual. My dad was never my coach. He was always like maybe an assistant coach at best on a team if they needed volunteers, but he was never the one deciding the lineup. And I love him for that. He was never in that situation where anyone looked at me like I was getting favored treatment, even though I wasn't, or, whatever. And so, I think that's been something.
Supportive, but casual.
Supportive, but casual. Yeah, definitely not pushing his own personal agenda on me ever, and I think if anything, I definitely learned that from my dad, and the fact that, my story, but how I moved back home to Michigan and got to spend 2 years with my dad, where he got to really know my son Grayson, and my son Grayson still talks about him to this day, Blake was born right before my dad passed. And so it was like, my dad knew, all right, my boy's got, 2 sons. And, it was like, I'll never forget, the conversation I had with my dad on the day he passed away, where he was like, you take care of those 3 boys. And I'm like, 3? And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, my dad must be losing it, and he's like, no, you take care of Grayson and Blake. The fact that he remembered Blake in that moment, and he's like, and Jack, my nephew, Jack, who's 23. I'm like, I think my brother-in-law, JD's got that one covered. He's like, nah, you take care of him. JD. And my dad loves my brother-in-law, but it was so funny. And it was just one of those moments where, I'm so thankful that things worked out the way they did. And I'm here now. But being a dad is the greatest privilege of my life. No question.
And this week is kind of bittersweet for you. And I share this with, Lauren, because her dad passed away when she was in her 20s. It's a bittersweet week for a dad like you, because it's like you're thinking of your dad and all the great things that, the stories you just shared, which is wonderful. But then, but you are a dad as well. So it's a little celebratory. It's probably a little bittersweet.
Yeah, it is. We did that to ourselves for our wedding too. I don't think I told you this, but I remember, and you were invited, by the way. I know you couldn't come at the time, but we got married on my dad's birthday. And I just thought that was the greatest idea at the time. He was my best man. And, I didn't think it through, and so I didn't realize every wedding anniversary, I'm going to be like, yay, let's go celebrate. And, I miss my dad, but yeah, so Father's Day is a different thing for me in that regard. Cause I do miss him. But you know what? I miss my dad every day. And I think ultimately from that perspective, I think my dad would have wanted me to spend that Father's Day with my boys doing whatever they want to do. And that's, my wife's always like, what do you want to do for Father's Day? I'm like, whatever Grayson and Blake want to do. It's about them.
That's so funny. I just asked JP the same thing. I go, what do you really want to do on Father's Day? And he said the same thing. He goes, honestly, he's like, you would love to just have the day off, but like, it's really just, you want to make the kids happy and do something where we can all kind of enjoy the activity, whatever that is. It's funny. Father's Day and Mother's Day they're such different animals. They really are.
No one really cares that much about Father's Day. I don't think. No. Mother's Day, we're like, what can we get her? Oh my God, what'll show her how much we love her? And Father's Day is kind of like, when is that?
Yeah.
Oh, it was yesterday. Oh, that's cool.
Oh crap!
Happy
It's in the
Father's
middle
Day.
of June. Yeah, well, the kids are at camp, and we got to go. We're on vacation.
Yeah.
It's like, here's a tie.
Yeah, here's the time. Well, I just said this. So my wife on our refrigerator, Grayson just graduated preschool, as you mentioned,
Yes.
and he had this thing, my mom, and it was for Mother's Day, and it was everything from like my mom loves to do this, and my mom and I love to do that. And I'm like, and I was looking at it, and there's some funny stuff on there.
Yeah.
My mom likes to drink, and Grayson puts wine. I'm like, what?
He knows mom well.
He knows mom so well. But I'm like, and I just said, I'm like, hey, Father's Day, we need to move it up. I'm like, he's already out of school. It's like, I'm not going to get one of these. I want to hear what he thinks of me.
Well, that is the case. It's true. Like if you have a birthday, because I'm a July birthday, so it was never in school. And I was always so envious of the kids that like you stopped. And this is back in the day when you were allowed to bring food. And she'd bring cupcakes and you'd sing, and they had like this moment. And I was like, oh man, I was like, I'm never going to get that in the middle of July. Same thing with Father's Day. Like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, it is what it is. But I will say Canyon is pretty thoughtful. She goes, hey, don't ruin it, but we may have got you covered on this. And I'm like, oh, really? So I'm interested to see what my son says.
Okay.
I do know one answer actually, which I think you'll find funny. So I said something to him one day about, I'm going to go, Daddy's going to go. We had like a bunch of friends over, and I said, well, Daddy's going to go get something to drink. And he said, is that a Mr. Guinea original? And I started laughing because that's what I call a vodka soda with lemon, right? I'm like, oh, that's an MGO. That's a Mr. Guinea original, And so he's like, is that a Mr. Guinea original? So now that I know he knows that, I can already see it being on my little sheet. So we'll see what happens.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I've asked the guys about, being a dad and all that, but how I would like to end with you. Tell me a great memory, a great story about your dad.
Oh man, you're gonna make me cry. Sorry, too many to mention. For sure. But my dad was born on Veterans Day, and my dad was, which means so now if you think about what I just said, my wedding day is also on Veterans Day. And he was a Marine, and he was a police officer in my hometown, and my dad was inducted into the Riverview Hall of Fame, which is, we're a small town just south of Detroit. And his proudest moment was for me was not the Bachelor stuff, not Michigan State football stuff, none of that. It was, well, before I had children, I should say, because that was really the proudest. But it was when I got inducted into the Hall of Fame, and we were both on the same wall. It had Robert Guinea and Robert Guinea. And I decided to make my speech all about my dad that day. He was still with us, and he was there. And at the end of my speech, everyone was clapping and crying and everything. And I come down, and I think I'm going to give my dad this big hug, and he's going to get emotional. And, he did later, I will say that. But in the moment, my dad goes, why the hell do you always do this? You get an honor like this, and you never talk about yourself. He's like, you always talk about me. And he's like, do you know how much pressure that puts on being the other Bob Guinea? And I thought it was so funny because I'm like, Dad, I'm the other Bob Guinea. You're the OG, man. You're the original. But it was just like my dad, leave it to him. He was never that great at really taking compliments or hearing someone talk about him, because all he wanted to do was hear about me or hear about everyone else. And so, needless to say, I need to take a little page out of that, because I really love hearing about me. So
enough about you. Let's talk about me.
Chris, I've heard so much about you today. Can we talk more about me?
Yeah.
But it became one of those things that I was like, man, I just want to be like, as I become older and as I grow older with my children, I realize, how our parents prepare us, in ways that we don't even realize. And I think my dad really gave me the most amazing blueprint on how to be a dad without saying a thing, and without ever preaching, and without ever trying to shove anything down my throat. And so as I am, finally starting to discover these things and these messages, I think the greatest story I could tell about my dad would be the fact that, he really taught me how to be a dad every single day without saying a word. And I think I'm going to try and do the same thing, just try and do as well as I can. And hopefully he's watching me and he's thinking I'm doing a great job. But, it's pretty remarkable how much I think about him every day. And those moments, you get me emotional every time we talk, Chris. You do this to me a lot, by the way. You're really good at it. But I love you, buddy. And I appreciate you letting me talk about my dad a little bit. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And that is the true sentiment. If you take anything away from Father's Day, that is it. The great men in our lives that teach, give, they're selfless, and most of the time, never asking for anything in return. And often it's those lessons that we don't even realize we've received until much later in life. So my love to the OG, Robert Guinea.
Thank you, buddy.
And my love to my dear friend, Bob Guinea, who, by the way, you are a great dad, and he would be incredibly proud of you, as I am. And that's why I wanted to have you on the show today. And my love to you, and happy Father's Day, man.
I love you, buddy. You're a great example too, as a dad. And I love you, and I appreciate how much you give to your kids and to your beautiful wife too. So I love you. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for including me in this group of great dads, because I love those guys. So thank you.
My thanks to 3 incredible dads and 3 incredible friends of mine, Ryan Sutter, JP Rosenbaum, Bob Guinea. One of the takeaways I just realized after saying goodbye to Bob, how different we all are. Different walks of life. We parent differently. We're very different dads. We've had different situations, but I would say successful, wonderful fathers in our own right, in our own way. And I guess the main takeaway is there's no right way. There's no one way. And, people will write books about parenting and this is the way to do it. I've never really believed in that, because there is no one way, because no 2 kids are the same. No 2 human beings are the same. With Joshua and Taylor, I can't parent them the same. Just like Bob Guinea can't parent Grayson and Blake the same. They're just 2 different human beings that'll have different experiences, different lives, different loves, passions, etc. And so I really respect the fact that those guys came on, shared their experience and how different they were. But again, I truly admire and respect all 3 of them, which is why I wanted to have them on. I love those men, and they are strong, beautiful, wonderful guys. And I'm glad that we all can be friends and share. And again, my best to Bob's late dad, the original Robert Guinea, to all of you out there, whether your dads are with us, whether they unfortunately are not. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Happy Father's Day. And thank you for what you do, because I know a lot is made, about parenting and this crazy world we live in, but a strong dad, that strong presence is such an important thing. I'm grateful for it. And if you're a dad out there, we're grateful for you. So happy Father's Day. All my love.
Thanks for listening. Follow us on Instagram at The Most Dramatic Pod Ever.